His name was Brian Roach, and he was living a dream. Or at least, that's what it looked like from the outside. At 27, Brian had already established himself as a respected and dedicated marine mammal trainer at SeaWorld San Diego. He wasn't driven by the roaring crowds or the flashing cameras. For Brian, it was always about the animals, about that silent, unspoken connection you could only find in the depths of the ocean. Since childhood, he had been captivated by orcas, while other kids dreamt of being astronauts or rock stars. Brian dreamt of swimming alongside these magnificent creatures, understanding their complex social structures and speaking their silent language. He wasn't the kind of trainer who relied on forceful commands or flashy gestures. His approach was patient, gentle, rooted in mutual respect, and it worked. The orcas seemed to respond to his calm demeanor, his quiet confidence. He understood their moods, their subtle shifts in behavior. He knew when to push and when to back off. His colleagues often commented on his almost uncanny ability to connect with the animals, forging bonds that seemed to transcend the concrete walls of the tank. And then there was Orchid. Orchid, a majestic female orca, born at SeaWorld San Diego on September 23, 1988. To the outside world, she was a star, a dazzling performer capable of breathtaking feats of athleticism and grace. She was sleek and powerful, a 7,000-pound spectacle that effortlessly captivated audiences. Trainers often referred to her as the perfect whale, not because she was the easiest to work with, but because she was exceptionally intelligent, quick to learn, and possessed a commanding presence within the tank. Orchid was born into SeaWorld royalty. Her mother, DEVOUR, was a dominant force within the orca community, a legend in her own right. But tragedy struck when Orchid was just a calf. DEVOUR died in front of a live audience after a collision with another whale during a performance. This event forever altered Orchid's life trajectory. She was raised entirely by humans, lacking the guidance and social structure of a natural pod. For SeaWorld, Orchid represented the pinnacle of their breeding program, a testament to their ability to successfully raise orcas in captivity. From the moment she could swim, she was trained, rewarded, and integrated into the performance routines. She mastered complex behaviors, responding to cues with remarkable precision. Year after year, she delivered flawless performances, solidifying her status as a SeaWorld icon. But behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding. A story of suppressed instincts, of mounting frustration, of a wild spirit confined within concrete walls. Unbeknownst to the cheering crowds, Orchid had a history of behavioral incidents, subtle at first, then gradually escalating in intensity. She would sometimes refuse commands, ignore cues, or splash trainers without warning. In one instance, she reportedly lunged at a trainer standing near the edge of the pool, knocking her off balance. On another occasion, she stubbornly refused to release a toy being held by a trainer, yanking it with surprising force. These incidents were documented in internal reports, but they were often dismissed as playful behavior or minor behavioral issues. The focus remained on Orchid's performance, on her ability to thrill audiences and generate revenue. The underlying causes of her erratic behavior were largely ignored. One former senior staff member at SeaWorld, who later spoke on the condition of anonymity, offered a chilling assessment of the situation. She wasn't unpredictable, she was underestimated. Orchid had learned to exert control, not only over her environment, but also over the people who interacted with her. The trainers walked a tightrope, respecting her immense power while relying on the predictability of routine. For years, Orchid stayed within those boundaries, adhering to the carefully choreographed scripts. But on November 15th, 2006, something was about to change. The script was about to be broken. And in that moment of rupture, a truth long suppressed by SeaWorld would be exposed. A killer whale is always a killer whale. Brian Roach understood the risks. He knew that working with orcas, even those born and raised in captivity, was inherently dangerous. But he also believed in the power of connection, in the possibility of building genuine relationships with these magnificent creatures. He trusted Orchid, and perhaps that was his greatest mistake. Because in the world of orca training, trust can be a fragile thing, a delicate illusion that can shatter in an instant. As another former colleague later said, Brian loved these animals. He believed in them. He never thought one would try to kill him. The day began like any other. The crisp San Diego air, the excited chatter of the crowds, the familiar scent of salt water and chlorine. Brian prepared for a routine performance with Orchid, a show that was supposed to be light, straightforward, a simple display of trust and cooperation. He slipped into his wetsuit, took a deep breath, and stepped into the water. The world above faded away, replaced by the cool, silent embrace of the tank. Orchid was there, waiting for him, a dark shadow gliding beneath the surface. But something felt different today. An unspoken tension, a subtle shift in Orchid's energy. A storm was brewing beneath the surface. A storm that would soon erupt, changing Brian Roach's life forever and exposing the hidden dangers that lurked within the shimmering world of SeaWorld. 26 seconds. That's all it took. 26 seconds to shatter a career, expose a lie, and almost extinguish a life. But what happened in the immediate aftermath of the attack on Brian Roach inside Shamu Stadium? The moment his head broke the surface, coughing, sputtering, adrenaline coursing through his veins, the world outside the tank was still oblivious. The music hadn't stopped, the announcer hadn't paused. The transition was seamless, as if nothing had happened. Except everything had happened. As Brian was hauled out of the water, his left foot a mangled mess of torn ligaments and bruising, the emergency response kicked into high gear. Forget the show, forget the audience. This was a code red situation. Forget the smiles, the carefully crafted narrative. Behind the scenes, the well-oiled machine of SeaWorld San Diego sprang into a very different kind of action. He was whisked away, carried by a team of trainers, each one acutely aware of the vulnerability they all faced. A vulnerability now horrifically exposed. They didn't speak, their faces grim. No reassuring words, just the urgent, silent need to get him to the medical room. Later, many would recall the sheer shock on Brian's face, a vacant stare that spoke volumes. He wasn't screaming, wasn't yelling. He was simply processing, trying to comprehend the incomprehensible. Inside the small, sterile room just off stage, the reality of the situation crashed down. A doctor, already prepped and waiting, began assessing the damage. The swelling was immediate, grotesque. The ankle twisted at an unnatural angle. The pain excruciating. Morphine was administered, offering a brief respite from the agony. But the physical pain was only part of the story. The psychological trauma was just beginning to surface. The betrayal, the sheer brutal force of the attack. The knowledge that a creature he had dedicated his life to understanding and caring for had tried to kill him. And more than that, the terrifying realization that this wasn't an isolated incident, that the inherent risk, always present, had finally manifested itself in the most violent way imaginable. While Brian received medical attention, a different kind of drama unfolded above. The audience, still largely unaware of what had transpired, was politely ushered out of the stadium. A vague announcement was made about technical difficulties and the show being temporarily suspended. No mention of a near-fatal attack. No admission of danger. Just carefully chosen words designed to minimize panic and maintain the illusion of control. Meanwhile, the park's senior management convened an emergency meeting. The topic: damage control. How to spin the story. How to protect the SeaWorld brand. How to minimize the fallout. The priority wasn't Brian's well-being, not truly. It was the company's reputation, its bottom line. Lawyers were consulted, public relations experts were brought in, and a carefully crafted statement began to take shape. A statement that would downplay the severity of the attack, emphasize the safety protocols in place, and reassure the public that everything was under control. But inside the trainer community, the atmosphere was far from calm. Fear and uncertainty spread like wildfire. Whispers replaced open conversation. Doubts crept in where trust had once reigned. Many questioned their own safety, their own judgment. Was this just an accident? Or was it a sign of something deeper, something more fundamental? Some trainers, particularly those who had witnessed Orchid's aggressive tendencies in the past, felt a sense of grim vindication. They had voiced their concerns, raised red flags, but their warnings had been dismissed, ignored, or downplayed. Now, their worst fears had been realized. For Brian Roach, the immediate aftermath was a blur of pain, confusion, and betrayal. As he lay in that medical room, his body battered and his spirit shaken, he knew one thing for certain: his life would never be the same. He was a survivor, yes, but he was also a witness to a truth that SeaWorld desperately wanted to keep hidden. A truth about the inherent dangers of captivity, the complex and unpredictable nature of orcas, and the price that both humans and animals paid for the sake of entertainment. This was a story that had to be told, even if it meant challenging the powerful forces that controlled the narrative. The attack might have lasted only 26 seconds, but the repercussions would echo for years to come. The attack on Brian Roach wasn't just an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a much deeper problem festering within SeaWorld and the entire marine park industry. For decades, these parks had built their empires on the backs, or rather, the fins, of captive orcas, spinning a narrative of education and conservation while raking in enormous profits. But the truth beneath the surface was far more troubling. Let's be clear, orcas are apex predators, highly intelligent, social creatures designed to roam vast ocean expanses. In the wild, they live in tightly knit family pods, communicating in complex dialects, hunting collaboratively, and passing down knowledge through generations. They traverse hundreds of miles daily, engaging in natural behaviors that stimulate their minds and bodies. Now, imagine taking these magnificent beings and confining them to relatively small concrete tanks, forcing them to perform repetitive tricks for food and entertainment. The psychological and physical toll is immense. The captivity debate isn't just about space. It's about depriving these animals of their fundamental needs. It's about stifling their natural instincts, disrupting their social structures, and subjecting them to constant stress. This stress manifests in a variety of ways, from abnormal behaviors like repetitive swimming and teeth grinding to increased aggression towards each other and, yes, even their trainers. SeaWorld, of course, always downplayed these concerns, argued that their orcas were well cared for, that they received the best veterinary attention, and that captivity allowed them to educate the public about these incredible animals. They presented a carefully curated image of happy, healthy whales performing in dazzling shows, while conveniently ignoring the darker realities of their lives. But the cracks in this facade were always there, visible to those who chose to look. Former trainers, often speaking anonymously for fear of legal repercussions, revealed the pressure they felt to prioritize performance over animal welfare. They spoke of the constant anxiety of working with powerful, unpredictable animals in unnatural conditions. They recounted instances of aggression, injuries, and even near-fatal attacks that were often swept under the rug to protect the company's image. And then there's the breeding program. SeaWorld touted its success in breeding orcas in captivity as a sign of their animals' well-being. But the reality is that captive breeding often results in shortened lifespans, compromised immune systems, and behavioral abnormalities. Orca calves born in captivity are deprived of the crucial social bonds and cultural knowledge they would acquire in the wild, perpetuating a cycle of dysfunction. The story of Brian Roach is inextricably linked to this larger narrative of captivity and its consequences. His attack was not an isolated event. It was a direct result of the inherent risks of confining these powerful creatures in artificial environments. It was a wake-up call that exposed the hypocrisy and the ethical compromises at the heart of the marine park industry. Brian's lasting impact extends far beyond the physical scars he bears. His story, along with those of other trainers and former SeaWorld employees, helped to fuel the growing movement against orca captivity. It contributed to the public's growing awareness of the ethical concerns surrounding these parks and the suffering they inflict on these magnificent animals. The film Blackfish, released in 2013, served as a pivotal moment in this shift in public perception. The documentary exposed the dark underbelly of SeaWorld, highlighting the psychological and physical toll of captivity on orcas and the dangers faced by their trainers. Blackfish sparked a national conversation about animal welfare and the ethics of entertainment, leading to a significant decline in SeaWorld's attendance and stock prices. While SeaWorld has since made some changes, including ending its orca breeding program and phasing out its theatrical orca shows, the underlying problem of captivity remains. Orcas born in captivity will continue to live out their lives in tanks, deprived of the natural world they were meant to inhabit. Brian Roach's experience serves as a powerful reminder of the cost of our entertainment. It challenges us to question the ethics of confining animals for our amusement and to consider the long-term consequences of our choices. His story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, but it is also a call to action to create a more compassionate and sustainable future for all living beings. The truth is, these animals were not made for our stage.